Hey everyone, welcome back to the Titan channel. Hope you guys had a good trading day today. Today is Tuesday, first day of the week. We had Memorial Day yesterday. And a big headline today was a lot of these Chinese stock names finally breaking out of these channels that they were stuck in. Just to highlight a couple, PDD was actually stuck under its 200-day moving average and kind of consolidating on it. And if you look at the chart, it rarely ever goes below that 200-day moving average. When it does, it's usually a short period of consolidation before bouncing. And that's what we had going on last week. You look at Baidu, they've been trading below their 200-day moving average. A good company that is just being hurt because it's a Chinese stock because of the kind of bearish sentiment around Chinese stocks lately. With fears of being delisted, investors pulled out of them. But it's still a good company and worth taking a shot on to many investors. And, you started to see over the past couple weeks that as it was trading below that 200-day moving average, it started to make higher lows. And at the same time, see if we can go over to the chart here. Right, so if we look at this daily chart, you guys see right around here as we're consolidating, we're making higher lows, right? So every time we pull back, it's a higher low than the previous low, and we were starting to build right here, right? So we talked about this on the watch list last night. We talked about the base right here as we're making higher lows right there. And finally today, we finally bursted out of that channel. PDD, if we go and we look at them, kind of similar setup, right? They went ahead and they tried to burst out, but came back down. But ultimately, if you go ahead and you look at the macro view on this daily chart, I mean, what is it indicating? That this is a nice area of value to buy right here under the 200-day moving average. And as we're going to dive into in this video, the flow strongly supported buying that dip. NIO, same thing, guys. These charts are all looking pretty similar, right? Building under that, making higher lows under that 200-day moving average, finally bursts out. And then, what was the last one? BABA. If we go to BABA, actually well below its 200-day moving average, but if you go back to the past 2 weeks, very similar pattern, making higher lows as it tries to burst out of this 20-day moving average and start moving its way up. Unfortunately, a lot of these names gapped up today and then just kind of slowly bled all day, with the exception of NIO. It broke out later in the day, but these names really, they gapped up, which is a bummer because you think, man, I missed out on this. Well, what we're going to do today is we're going to dive into the flow that occurred last week, particularly Wednesday through Friday of last week, and how we actually had a pretty strong indication that these moves were coming. All right, so we know that the TA was pointing towards bullish, right? So all we're looking for is some flow confirmation. So we're going to go ahead and kick this off with BABA, right? And what we noticed last week between May 26th and May 28th was an influx of 220 and 225 strike calls being purchased, right? Important to note here that there was very tight spreads on these contracts. So when you're looking at the ask and the bid, when there's a really tight spread, it's not too important. If you see above the ask or below the bid, then that's important. But regardless of a tight spread, I mean, still overall bullish sentiment with the sweeps. And as we're going to see as we dive into the other three names, all of them intertwining with bullish flow is a very strong indicator, because I'm not sure if any of you guys would remember this or not, but a couple weeks ago we had a lot of semiconductors, right? And anytime you see this, it's a pretty strong indicator, right? When you see an overall sector start to get bullish flow, like semiconductors, if you see NVIDIA, AMD, MU, if you see all those semiconductor names all getting out of the money call buying, right? That's a bullish indication for that overall sector. When you see it for like Tesla, NIO, like any kind of electric vehicles, like this is the kind of thing we're talking about. So in this case, it was Chinese stocks, right? So we had that bullish flow across the board. And these ones, I believe it was the June 220 calls actually hit plus 354% today from being purchased at 1.16. They actually hit 5.0 today. So crazy move on those contracts. We go over to NIO. NIO actually had some above the ask purchases last Wednesday that were $5 out of the money. It was actually super bullish flow on NIO, and again tying into that Chinese theme with BABA. The Thursday and Friday we saw a continuation off of those above the ask orders from Wednesday, right? So here's your above ask orders on Wednesday. Then we get Thursday and Friday, same thing, right? Out of the money, in this case at the money, right? Still a bullish indicator. All of these calls coming in at the ask, and the technical analysis supported it, right? So it wasn't just flow, it wasn't just technical analysis, it was both of these things lining up. And out of the money June sweeps, right? Does that sound familiar, guys? If we go back to BABA, same thing. These are all June, right? Coming in the last week of May. We dive into PDD. Not as much flow, but if we look at the overall put to call ratio that came in between those 3 days, 32,000 calls were sent in versus only 4,000 puts, right? So you had 88% calls to 12% puts that were sent in. I mean, that's a crazy ratio, right? Very overwhelmingly bullish sentiment. And the TA was a bit unbiased, right? Because we hadn't broke out of that 200-day moving average yet. But I would actually say that maybe you could argue it was there was bull bias in the technical analysis, just because we were making those higher lows as we were trying to crawl out of that dip below the 200-day moving average. Right, and then the last one, just to round them out, is going to be Baidu. So again, guys, out of the money call buying on June, right? We now have 4 companies that are Chinese stocks that are all getting out of the money June call buying at the ask, above the ask. In this case, 91% calls to only 9% puts, meaning 22,000 calls to 2,000 puts. Overwhelmingly bullish. These are the kind of things we look for. A lot of traders get overwhelmed, and understandably so, right? When you're looking at flow, it's just pouring in constantly, and you see crazy far in the money and multi-million-dollar orders versus these little orders and call, put. They're all over the place, right? It can be very overwhelming to newer traders. Even experienced traders have a hard time analyzing flow. So what I want you guys to do is look out for these kind of things when you see stocks in the same sector, right? So we're looking for these similarities, right? And in previous videos and on Twitter, we've talked about these 4 golden rules. We've talked about short-term expiration, out of the money strike price, right? Calls being purchased if you're bullish, right, you want to see calls above the ask or at least at the ask, but you also preferably want to see some above the ask like we saw with NIO. And also if you're bullish, you want to see puts below the bid, right, because they're being sold aggressively. And the inverse of that, right, calls below bid, puts above ask. Right, and that 4th rule, which kind of ties into this video that we're discussing today, is you want to see similarities. You want to see multiple contracts coming in, preferably totaling at least $1 million plus. Like we had with these, where is it? Like NIO, right? You have 48, 115, 95, 300, 40, right? By themselves, they're not that overwhelming, but when you see them stacking up and constantly coming in, it's a very bullish indicator. And you can throw on top of that 4th rule, you can throw this in when you see similar companies getting similar option flow, right? So I just really encourage you guys to practice these rules and especially if you're a day trader. But like something like this is a swing trade, right? This was a strong indicator to swing this over the 3-day weekend. So just use these rules, guys, to narrow down what you're seeing, right? So this is going to help you kind of throw out the junk flow, and it's going to help you focus on what's important. With that, guys, that's going to wrap this video up. I really hope you guys took something away from this. If you have any questions, please feel free to drop a comment down below or reach out on Discord or Twitter. And yeah, that's going to do it, guys. Keep in mind that tomorrow I will be live on the YouTube just to answer any questions, just talk the stock market, go ahead and give an updated watch list to round out the week. So yeah, I hope to see you guys there. All right, take care, everybody.